Welcome to all. As a head teacher, you may have to manage different things. You have to manage the human resources, you have to manage the evaluation, you have to sometimes manage the record keeping, and many of the times you can see that it is the responsibility of the head teacher to manage the physical resources. So in today's session, we are going to discuss about management of physical resources. After watching this session, you should be able to develop understanding about the management of physical resources, to identify the principles of physical resource management, to categorize the characteristics of physical resource management, and to develop understanding about the process of physical resource management. Before going into the detail of how to manage the physical resources, you have to know what is the meaning of resource management. When we look at the term resource management, it is the process of allocating resources to achieve the greatest organizational value. So here we can see that there are different types of physical resources that is available in the school. How as a teacher we organize the physical resources, that is important. And another definition regarding the resource management, we can see that it is critical for organizations to ensure that they are optimizing and allocating resources to the right initiatives. So there are different types of resources, whether it is directed to the right purpose, or are we utilizing it or wasting it, or simply stagnant resources may be there in an institution. When we look at the resources, we can see that the resources can be intangible, finance, and tangible. From the term itself, you can understand what is the meaning of intangible resources. The resources that cannot be seen, and then the financial resources will be there, and the tangible resources, that means the resources that can be seen. Here we can see from the screen that there are different types of resources. When we say about the time, that is a resource, accounting, that is a resource, building, that is a resource, manpower, that is a resource, space is a resource, staffs, they are resources, drinking water supply, that is also a resource, and records, they are resources. When nobody can deny the fact that these resources are not important in a school. All these resources are very much important in a school. But how we can categorize these resources under the three aspects, that is intangible, finance, and tangible. Take the example of time. We can see that the time is a resource which nobody can see that whether it is existing or not. But it is an intangible resource which is an important resource in running any organization. The timely initiation of the school assembly, that is an important thing. But we will assure that by the beginning of the morning assembly. And the time that we are spending for the group meetings, whether it is tangible, it is not tangible, it is intangible. Coming to the second resource, that is accounting, which is a tangible resource, that there may be the records, the numbers will be utilizing manipulation of different numbers and calculations, everything we can see. And the next resource, that is building, which is also an example of tangible resource, which is an important thing that we can state that whether the institution exists or not, whether the institution have enough space for every purpose of functioning of a school. And the next, manpower, that is the power. Manpower is an intangible resource. We cannot see the power of that is involved in human resources, but we can utilize it, that their expertise, their skills, how do we utilize, that is an important thing. And the next one, that is space, that how do we utilize the space that is available in an institution, that is a tangible resources, and then the staffs, that is a tangible resources. There may be the clerical staffs, the authorities, the teaching staff, the non-teaching staff, all these comes under the tangible resources. Then when we look at another example, that is records, we know that nowadays everything should be in black and white. So here, whether it is in the computer or it is manually, we can see that this records, it's an important part which is a tangible resource. Then the drinking water supply, whether the safe drinking water supply is provided in institutions, that is also an important thing. So coming to the major sections of school building, we can categorize it into two, that is the academic block and the administrative block. So here, these two, which are an important tangible resource, there the academic block, which includes the important officers, the head office, the staff room office, so the school buildings, everything will come under the administrative block. Then comes academic block, sorry. So then comes the administrative block, where we can see the office and the other things which are coming under the administrative block. So this way we can categorize the sections of a school building. Then coming to a case that, suppose as a head teacher, you wish to make a survey for the identification of physical resources for management purposes. How will you proceed? So such type of situations are confronted by the head teachers. So how, as a head teacher, I should proceed in this situation? So there occur several processes that a head teacher has to use. The head teacher should first confirm about the existing resources that are available in his or her institution. So for this, the need analysis should be done. The existing physical resources should be analyzed, and then only a list of items can be prepared. So here, in such cases, the head teacher will take the support of the subordinates and then prepare the priorities according to the available finance of a school. So that is an important thing when we think of this financial management. The fund is an important aspect. Based upon the fund only, the head teacher can spend about how much they have to spend. It depends upon the fund that is available. So there may be many essentials for an institution, but the most essential thing only a head teacher can satisfy. Then comes in this, along with this case study, what is important is the principles of management of physical resources. There, some of the points I need to specify. The first one, the all possible resources should be identified and used properly. So here, there the available resources and whether they are appropriately utilizing in an institution, that should be confirmed. Secondly, there should be maximum use of all available resources. Sometimes there are many resources, for example, the furniture, the old furniture, the new furniture, whether they are utilizing in a proper way, whether there is scope for repairment of the existing furniture and then utilizing it. So that step also should be taken into consideration. So these two steps, the first one, first to identify the existing resources in a school, and then how much maximum use of all the available resources are done in an institution. Then the local resources should be sought and manufactured wherever possible. So here, instead of going for a higher expensive resources, if the resources is available locally at a nominal rate and the quality of the resources is up to the mark, then a head teacher can go for purchasing that type of resources instead of the highly expensive resources. Then comes the use of resources should be carefully maintained and controlled. Otherwise, there should not be any supervision for the utilization of the resources, so that controlling and maintenance of the available resources is an important principle. Then we can see that the characteristics of physical resource management. There are different characteristics features when we think of the physical resource management. The first one, economy, then adequacy, safety, coordination, adaptability, beauty, efficiency, and unity. So these are the different characteristics of a physical resource management. So let us see what does the term economy denote. When we look at the term economy, what we mean is that the physical resources which is available in the school should be in economic in nature. That is, the expensive should be within the range of the fund that is available in the school. Then the economy in terms of time and money, that is an important thing. So whether the resources is able to purchase within a particular period and that can be utilized immediately, or otherwise mainly the supply of the resources will take long hours for that one academic year maybe get over. So in such cases, what is an important thing? That is, economic use of resources is an important thing. Secondly, the characteristics denote that adequacy, whether the particular resources are adequate for the available needs of an institution. Then the safety. We know that the safety purpose is an important aspect. Whatever resources we purchase, we have to check the safety of that particular resources. Then the coordination. How do we coordinate when there are a lot of resources? How do we arrange? How the spacious insufficiency can be adjusted by the purchasing of the resources. All the things should be taken into account. And the next one, the adaptability, which is an important thing, that the resources, how we can adapt the resources to the needs, to the immediate needs or the far-reaching needs, like that. Then the beauty of the resources, whether the resources are apt or not. Then efficiency and utility. This is also an important aspect. So the resources, just to make different types of resources in an institution doesn't make the purpose. So what is important? The efficient utilization of resources, and then whether the unity, the efficiency and unity of the resources. For this, when we think of the human resources, we can see that the efficiency and unity is an important aspect. Then comes the procedure of management of physical resources. So we have seen what are the principles of physical resources. Then we have seen the way how we manage the resources. Then the procedure of management of physical resources. So here, when we think of the procedure, we can state that there are three procedures that a head teacher has to follow. The first one, making a survey of resources, making an analysis of the existing resources, preparing improvement program projects. That is also an important thing. So the first step that we can see that making a survey of resources. As stated earlier, first what we have to do is to make a survey of resources. So what are the resources needed? Then the second step is also linked with the first step, that making an analysis of the existing resources. So the resources which the government prescribe for that is needed for a school, and then the existing resources. So such type of survey should be conducted. Then we can state that preparing the improvement program projects. So coming to the second step, making an analysis of existing resources, there we can see that the school building is spacious enough to cope with the present needs. Then the equipments and furnitures are adequate, whether they are adequate. Then the laboratory and library facilities, are they in proper shape? Then the institutional program needs and reshuffling and changes, and the institution needs additional adjuncts like the hostel, the staff quarters, school bus, more playfields, etc. So this such type of analysis of existing resources is important. Then comes the third thing that we have stated, that the important thing, preparing improvement program projects. So when we think of this preparing improvement program projects, what is important? First, we have to think what type of programs are important. There we can classify the programs into two, that short-term projects and the long-term projects. So in any institution, whether it is educational or non-educational institutions, such type of goals should be there that should be achieved within a shorter period, and that should be achieved for a longer period. So here there are different types of projects are displayed, such as the projects concerning building, projects concerning campus, projects concerning instructional material, projects concerning equipments, projects concerning hygiene and sanitation, projects concerning students' welfare. So when we think of these projects concerning building, we know that that is a long-term projects. Then the projects concerning campus, that is sometimes the beautification, which should be achieved within a short term. So short-term projects we can categorize it. Then projects concerning the instructional material, that should be a short-term project, that the material should reach within an academic year and it should be distributed to the learners. Then projects concerning equipments. So this also for the lab purpose, for every year, the academic year, we can make it for the short-term projects. Then projects concerning hygiene and sanitation, short-term projects, projects concerning students' welfare. So some of the projects can be realized after a long period of time, and many of them can be realized within a shorter period. So these are about the projects improvement or the program improvement projects. Then comes the supervision of physical resource management. What is the role of the head in the supervision of physical resource management? In such cases, we can see that the all school building equipments and properly must be well maintained. Then the role of the head teacher should be conversant with the supplies and maintenance regulations. All school purchase must be correctly recorded and maintained in good order. All school purchase must be used for the purpose for which they were brought. Goods and materials must be frequently checked and controlled to ensure their effective use. An up-to-date inventory must be kept in every location of the school resources. So here, whether the resources are there, whether it is maintained properly, how to supervise. So for that, an inventory book is always essential, so that the list of the resources that is available can be checked correctly. Then we can see that regarding the supervision of physical resource management, we have stated that there are several things that the head teacher has to keep in mind. So here, what are the important things is that the all school building equipments are properly maintained. So we know that the institution may be started for a long period back, for a long time back. So what is important is that after year by year, the maintenance should be done. So whether the building should be demolished, it is not possible. So how do we take care of the repairing of the buildings? That is an important aspect, especially the washrooms and everything, how we are maintaining it in a proper way. That should be taken into account, that whether the repairing is needed or whether we can fit it or the fixes and fit it with the new requirements, that thing should be taken into account. And the next one, that as a head teacher, he should be conversant with supplies and maintenance regulations. The regulations may be changing. So what is the rule and regulations for the purchase of the resources and how much money can be spent within the available limit? So what is the cap of the purchasing and spending for purchasing the resources? That should be kept in mind. And the next one we can see is that all school purchases must be correctly recorded. For that, manually, and now the digital space is there, so it is very convenient to record how much resources have been purchased. Then the goods and materials must be frequently checked and ensure their efficient use. Sometimes getting a bulky order of several supplies or the bulky order of the materials, some of the materials may not be in good shape. So it should be checked when it reaches the institution. Then an up-to-date inventory must be kept in every location of the school resources. That is, whether the resources are taken away or it is destroyed, all the things should be kept in mind. And coming to the next point, that is the constraints in physical resource management. So we have seen what are the principles of physical resource management, the procedure of physical resource management, the characteristics of physical resource management, and what is the role of the head teacher. And coming to the constraints in physical resource management, there we can see the main points such as insufficient funding, shortage of financial trained personnel, then lack of storage space, insecure storage facilities, delays in the disposal of stocks, increase in maintenance demands, irregular record keeping. So these are some of the constraints when we taking into account that the physical resources. So the constraints, the first constraint, that is the insufficient funding. When we look at the schools, whether it is government or private, we can see that many of the government schools lack many of the equipments. What is the thing is that they said that the lack of finance. So the funding is insufficient, or otherwise it may takes time to get the fund from the authorities. So within the particular period, it is not possible to realize the availability of a particular type of resources. So insufficient funding is a major constraint in physical resource management. Next, the shortage of trained personnel. We know that now these digital equipments are available. For that, we need trained or skilled experts for operating such type of resources. Whether all the institutions are having that skilled personnel, whether it is a smart board or the different types of the LCD projectors and everything. And this type of things require the needs of the trained personnel. Then one, the lack of storage space. We know that in computer lab, the computers, when it become old and we want to replace it, the main issue is where do we keep the old computers. So they are taking lot of space. So bulkily we are dumping it in one space without taking into account how much space it is wasting. So it's time to think about the management of the digital waste resources. And the next one, the insecure storage facilities. We can see that there may not be a secure storage facilities for generator, for the computer room. We need a computer room in every institutions. So the storage facility is an important aspect. And then comes the delays in the disposal of stocks. So this is also one of the constraints that we can see, that how the disposal of the stocks, how much delay it is happening in the disposal of stocks. Then increase in maintenance demands. So some of the resources needs the maintenance charges. How do we maintain that type of resources? So what much amount we are keeping for that purpose, that should be taken into account. And the next constraint, that the irregular record keeping. We are not maintaining the proper record. So this irregular record keeping also creates some kind of constraints in the resources. So we can recollect the constraints once again as displayed, that we can see that the insufficient funding, the shortage of the trained personnel, then the lack of storage space, then the increased storage facilities, delays in the disposal of stocks, increase in maintenance demands, irregular record keeping. All these constraints should be taken into consideration. So hence, in this session, we have discussed about what do we mean by physical resource management, what are the characteristics of physical resource management, then what are the principles of physical resource management, and what is the role of the head in managing the physical resource, and lastly we have discussed about the constraints in physical resource management. Thank you.
पहाड़ों पर जाना किसे पसंद नहीं। इस तरह के पहाड़ तो आपने देखे ही होंगे। चलिए आज आपको विशेष प्रकार के पहाड़ों की सैर कराते हैं। ये हैं कूड़े के पहाड़, जिनके बोझ